Welcome to the Rummage Report for April 14th, 2026. Today's topic is Iran retaliates against Israel attack. Jordan Progress kicks us off today.
Hey guys, have you seen what's happening with Iran and Israel? It's a mess that started back in February when US and Israeli forces launched this huge operation against Iran. They took out their supreme leader, which sounds bold, but it resulted in a lot of civilian casualties, including kids at a school. Now, Iran is firing back with missiles and drones, targeting US embassies and oil infrastructure across the region. This is important for us because it's not just a foreign conflict. It's going to hit us right in the pocketbook. Oil prices are already climbing, and that means higher gas prices, which trickles down to everything from groceries to heating bills. And when the government spends billions on military operations, that's money that could have gone to healthcare, education, or even job programs right here at home. Plus, there's a real lack of evidence that Iran was about to strike us, which makes you wonder if this whole thing is just a cover for something else.
Jordan, you nailed the connection between rising oil prices and the everyday costs people are facing. But let's dig deeper into the implications. If oil hits $200 a barrel, as some predict, we're not just talking about higher gas prices. We're looking at grocery bills going up, heating costs skyrocketing, and a potential economic slowdown that could put millions of jobs at risk in sectors like manufacturing and transport. Casey, while I get the instinct to push back against military action, we need to consider that Iran's aggressive response isn't happening in a vacuum. The US and Israel's actions were framed as necessary for regional security, but they've clearly escalated the conflict. It's a trade-off. How much are we willing to spend on military interventions versus the economic stability of American families?
Jordan, you make an excellent point about how the conflict impacts oil prices, and I completely agree that rising gas prices hit us all in the pocketbook. But let's not forget the other side of this coin. Iran's actions are not just a reaction to our military strikes. They're a part of a broader strategy to expand their influence in the region. If we allow Iran to retaliate without consequence, we risk emboldening them further, which could lead to even more instability and higher costs in the long run. Sam, you're right about the potential economic slowdown, but we need to consider that a strong response is necessary to deter Iran from future aggression. If we don't act, it could lead to more costly military engagements down the line. We have to balance immediate costs with long-term security.
Casey, I get your point about the need for a strong response to Iran, but we have to look at the consequences of our actions. The civilian casualties from our strikes, like the tragedy at the girls' school, show that this isn't just about military strategy. It's about real people suffering. That's not deterrence, that's escalation. And Sam, while you're spot on about the economic risks, we need to be clear. The lack of evidence for an imminent threat from Iran raises serious questions about whether this military action was justified at all. If we keep funneling money into these conflicts, that's money taken away from healthcare and education for families right here in Ohio. We should be investing in our communities, not fueling endless wars.
Jordan, you hit the nail on the head about civilian casualties and the economic fallout from military actions. But Casey, while I get your point about deterrence, we have to recognize that the US and Israel's aggressive strikes have led to a severe escalation, not just a necessary response. The civilian toll, particularly the tragic incident at the girls' school, raises serious ethical questions about our approach and whether it truly serves our long-term interests. If oil prices soar to $200 a barrel, we're looking at a significant hit to household budgets across the country, not just in Ohio, but everywhere. This isn't just a geopolitical issue. It's about whether families can afford to fill up their tanks, heat their homes, or pay for groceries. We need a strategy that balances security with economic stability for everyday Americans.
Jordan, you're absolutely right about the civilian casualties being a tragic consequence, and that's something we all should be concerned about. But let's not overlook the fact that Iran has been systematically expanding its influence and capabilities for years. If we don't respond decisively, we risk emboldening a regime that has shown no qualms about targeting US interests. Sam, I agree that we must balance military action with its economic impacts, but we can't ignore the necessity of a strong stance against threats. If we let oil prices climb unchecked due to Iranian aggression, it won't just hit our gas prices. It'll drive up costs across the board for families trying to make ends meet. This isn't just about politics. It's about keeping our communities safe and economically stable.
The conversation. The discussion centered around the recent conflict between Iran and Israel, particularly the U.S. military actions against Iran and Iran's subsequent retaliatory strikes. Jordan Progress emphasized the tragic civilian casualties resulting from military operations and the economic repercussions, such as rising oil prices affecting everyday Americans. Sam Balance agreed with the economic concerns but highlighted that the military actions were framed as necessary for regional security, suggesting a balance between military intervention and its economic impact. Casey Liberty countered that a strong response to Iran is essential to deter future threats, arguing that failing to act could embolden Iran further. The main disagreement arose over whether military action was justified and how to balance immediate military responses with long-term economic stability. Worth thinking about. 1. If the conflict escalates and leads to a significant economic downturn, how should the U.S. prioritize military intervention versus domestic investment in healthcare and education? 2. Given the civilian casualties and ethical implications of military action, can we justify military strikes if there is a lack of evidence for an imminent threat? 3. How do we reconcile the need for national security with the moral obligation to minimize civilian suffering in foreign conflicts, especially when those conflicts have direct economic repercussions at home? If you asked me, and remember, I'm a raccoon, I'd say sometimes a little trash talk is better than tossing around bombs.